Hello and welcome to presentation 4 of Unit 1, uh, delivering bad news and negative messages. So yes, we've saved the hardest task for last, building on everything you've learned so far, because certainly delivering bad news is something that most people find really difficult. Now, in the last presentation, we talked about the advantages of the indirect versus the direct approach. And you might tend to think that for routine and positive messages, you would pretty much always use the direct approach because it gets straight to the point, tends to save time, and shows how that you're being direct and honest. And that for negative news, you would always use the indirect approach. However, it isn't really that simple. You might want to use the direct approach even for negative news if it's not a big deal. If you start using the indirect approach where you're giving the reasoning before the bad news, it might start to make a bigger deal out of it, make it seem like this is a bigger issue than it actually is. Whereas using the direct approach shows that although the news is negative, you don't consider it to be so bad that you can't just get to the point, give the bad news, follow up with a reason or two, and then close. Also, some people just prefer the direct approach, and some organizations. So, for them, just knowing your audience, which, as we noted right at the beginning, is always important, will let you know that this is the best approach. And finally, if this isn't the first time you've had to deliver this negative news, if it's an employee who's had to be counseled repeatedly, a customer who needs to pay up, then when it comes time to get firm, then you would want to use the direct approach to show that you mean business. However, the indirect approach still will be the better way of organizing the message in a lot of cases when the news is bad. It's a way to show sensitivity, and although some people prefer firmness and getting straight to the point, a lot of people need to be treated with a bit more compassion and sensitivity than that. And using the indirect approach is certainly a way to soften the blow. So it's not an automatic choice. And we'll look at a few other tips for delivering just bad news in general. One is to, when you're delivering bad news, make sure you've got a complete, clear explanation ready ahead of time. As you'll know from experience, when you're delivering good news, people don't need a lot of proof. If you tell them they're terrific and they won a prize, you don't need to show the evidence. They'll take what you're saying and walk away. On the other hand, if people are receiving bad news, they want to know why. So make sure you've got your explanation complete and clear in your mind, that you've untangled those thoughts beforehand. Be professional and fair. It's all too easy when you're dealing with a troublesome employee or customer to lose your temper, snap, and get emotional. And that's just utterly the wrong way to go in a work environment. This isn't personal. You're going to have an ongoing relationship with this person that's going to go far beyond this one incident. You need to be professional, fair, courteous. You want to maintain friendly relations for the future, as unless you're completely cutting ties, you're going to be dealing with this person. And also, getting emotional is inappropriate because this isn't a personal issue. This is a work problem that you are trying to resolve, and your focus needs to be on solving the problem, not your annoyed feelings. So be professional, be sympathetic, and maintain friendly relationships. Okay, so those are all good principles, but seeing them in action, I think, seeing an actual example is helpful rather than just talking about them in the abstract. So what I've done is that reading 1.4a, I've put up a negative message exercise with a few different scenarios. And we can just run through one of them to see the indirect approach in action. And in this situation, one of your employees has asked for a holiday for a week, but an employee with seniority has already asked for holiday for that same week, and it's a busy time when you really can't afford to be too short-staffed. So you need to turn their request down, but you need to be a bit sensitive, as this is one of the few chances they've got to meet with family. So you're going to use the indirect approach and keep it firm, fair, friendly, and professional. So let's look at how the indirect approach might actually work in this situation. As you'll recall, the indirect approach begins with a friendly opening buffer. So just, hello, I received your vacation request, and I gave it a lot of thought. Show that this isn't just a snap of the moment decision. I appreciate the work, and I know you're wanting to visit your family. So you show some empathy, and you put yourself on common ground with the other person. After all, you're not enemies. You may be turning them down, but you're not opponents. This is someone who reports to you, someone that you work with. Then in the indirect approach, you give the reasons before the bad news. As you know, it's a busy enrollment time for us, and so has already asked for vacation that week, so they got in there ahead of you. And then you deliver the bad news. Because of this, I'm not able to grant you vacation for that week. And it's not personal. It's just the requirements of the job. And as always, in a work environment, when you need to deliver negative news, what you're always looking for is some kind of alternative or some kind of solution. So in this case, with the pleasant closing, we're asking, would working from home for that week work for you? You'd still be available, but you'd have a chance to see your family while they're here. And remember that in that pleasant closing, you're always looking for finality. What action is required and when by. You want to resolve the situation. So here we say, I hope that works for you, and let me know. And you might say, let me know by close of business tomorrow. Say, with these messages, you're looking to resolve the situation, so you're always looking for an action and a deadline as part of the pleasant closing. And then you're done. Okay, so that's an example of how you might apply the indirect approach in one situation, but let's look at a couple of other specific situations that you might have to deal with in a CS unit. And one would be dealing with disappointed customers where they didn't get the course they wanted or the course was disappointing. And the key thing that you want to do here is call the person involved, deal with them directly, deal with them face to face, and describe the problem and apologize. And too often, people are given the advice that you shouldn't apologize, as though it exposes you to some sort of terrible legal liability. No, it doesn't, and an apology goes a long way. Again, because people will take good news with very little justification, but they need to know why for bad news. Be as transparent as you can. Don't throw any of your employees under the bus, but so far as you can, explain what happened and why you're and what you're doing to ensure it won't happen again. Show that you're taking some action, and then follow up with a message and a phone call with whatever solution you've proposed. Because again, in a work environment where something negative has happened, where you have to turn someone down, always look for some kind of solution, some kind of alternate. Are you giving a refund, a credit, whatever? Do ensure that you follow up so that they know you're going to follow. They know your promise is good, and that you're not just saying something to get rid of them, that you will follow through and you will deliver on what you promise. And so that's a few tips for dealing with disappointed customers. If you have to give some bad news to a group of employees, the tips are fairly similar. Again, deliver the bad news in person. And this is just showing that you're being honest. It's a chance to show empathy. After all, these employees are members of your team. And again, you need to keep that relationship intact. Sending bad news by email just looks cowardly, looks dishonest, and harms the relationship. Again, make sure you've got all of the details. We talked about the communication process. Well, make sure that you've untangled your thoughts, maybe written down some notes in outline form so that you're prepared ahead of time and that you're ready to give a full explanation. Consider taking someone with you to help parry any questions, so to make sure that you can deal with the situation in the meeting. Timing, think about when you do this, when is a good time for your people, and be patient. Nobody likes getting bad news. They might have some negative reactions, some questions. Take the time to deal with them. As a leader, giving your time is the most precious thing that you can give to your employees. And taking the time to hear their objections, hear their questions, and deal with them right up front is one of the best ways to defuse the situation and ensure that you maintain the relationship for the future. Okay, so dealing with bad news and negative situations, never pleasant, always the hardest form of message that you'll have to deliver. But as we noted at the beginning, your choice of direct and indirect approach isn't an automatic one. You need to know how to use both approaches effectively depending on the individual and the message. We looked at an example and some specific tips for dealing with customers and with employees. As always, if you have any questions, cavils, cachinnations, your own examples, further examples, do comment in the discussion board, and I will see you there. And as always, thank you for your time, and all the best for now.